Reytan, Day 11. Reytan opened his red eyes, trying to make sense through the stupor of the rumbling in his mind and the stench of Hades' sewers. The sky above him, dense and choking, swayed with much unease. Dust like sleet, within it floating, tasted bitter of disease. He picked himself up off the ground, slowly so he'd mask the constant pain, carefully prodding all around with a makeshift wooden cane. He could hear the frightened horse whinnying somewhere close nearby, so he dragged himself to it perforce and grabbed the bridle with a cry. And with what strength he had remaining, mounted it he then swiftly. In the distance, winds were wailing with plumes of acrid dust grains drifting. The rumbling had got louder then, and air got even thicker still. Reytan bolted back to Sass's den, past the quaking of the hills. People, people, get your wares. Seize your loved ones and your kin. Don't get caught unawares. Run to caves and stay within. There's no time now. Move you quick. Store you now. Regret you later. Clouds of ash will rain thick from the spewing of the crater. Guards shall fetch the king and court, servants, priests and courtesans, cattle, poultry, pigs and transport, and there'll be no favouring none. Follow me now all to shelter. Caves of mortal sin are vast. Move. Don't wait for the crater to claim victory. Run now fast. Reytan's frenzied pleading worked. Soon the king and all his subjects fled to caves to hide in dark, fearing happenstance most abject. Food was justly distributed, blankets given to all frail, fires lit and barefoot booted, thirsty given where warm ale. And while the king sat chewing nettles, just as servants made the rounds, making sure the beasts were settled, and no one ventured out of bounds. They did not have to wait that long for the boom to shake the land. Reytan right was all along. Ground exploded with a bang. Saffron fluid lava flowed up into the blood-red sky. Fiery air with anger glowed, all without would melt and fry. Magma fissured from the vents, and everywhere chunks of tephra littered the surrounding land, blown around by winds of zephyr. Clouds of ash thrown to the skies fell onto the ground like snow, suffocating rats and flies and anything it caught below. The heat was palpable in the caves, and people moved within to cool. It came to burn the skin in waves, such is nature at most cruel. Reytan brought up pails of water from the depths of lower caverns to the ones that felt the hottest in a most pensive manner. And while his servants carried on tending to those most affected, he walked up to the makeshift throne and offered Sass his own perspective. Your Royal Highness, we need wait for the anger of the gods to pass. We have plenty food to fill our plates and enough water for to last. Sass looked bored. Then he stopped chewing. The dead nettle's rigid stems. His fair maids were busy brewing cold mud tea, which they only served to men. He looked at Reytan with disdain. You dragged us here. Sure, 'twas fine, but this scorching air brings pain, and the floor's not civilized. How can I make regal judgments in an atmosphere of such bedlam, of an odour air so pungent, and of noise air so deafening? Come, my friend, hand me succor on a plate instead of food. Serve me potions of grand valour, bring me solace, lift my mood. Reytan's bony fingers tightened around his sword. His firmly grounded feet then gave a noiseless twitch. He felt her bellow coming on, but said no word, angry that the king's throat was just out of reach. He drew a breath to steady nerves and composed himself with a right smile. Sir, our flock we must preserve. We may be here for a while. Sass removed his line of sight to focus on a mud he made. We best not be here till midnight. Early eve will be too late. The jester took a painful bow, gritting at his grubby teeth, desperate not to let it show he was livid underneath. He spent the next few restless hours pacing up and down the mouths of caves, peering at the ashen showers pouring down on Woros plains. Then he sat himself by the rim, overlooking the apocalypse, looking gaunt, sick, tired and thin, muttering weakly through his lips. What is life, if not a journey? One without a destination. Why does this vile thought concern me when I'm in need of consolation? Is my anger aimed at kings or at voices of pure conscience in my head? Do I covet love, fame, or mere temporal things? Do I fear my time of death, or just the thought of being dead? Life's a struggle, one that does not reap awards. You jump onto it in midstream as it's galloping towards an evermore retreating dream. Oftentimes I've been a fool and placed my feet at evil's door, but loyalty is a tool that the devil frequently chooses to ignore. The bitter feed my soul consumes comes not from him, but my own angst. This poison smells like sweet perfume, and I drink it from my own hands. Just what does it take to prove your worth when you're never even seen? In the shadows, since your birth, always stuck in between. Noblemen move the quill that writes the history of life's woes, then knock the inkwell so it spills onto the pages in mid-flow. And I am nothing but soiled vermin, gnawing on the wooden door, while inside the screw is turning to keep it locked forevermore. I cannot feel for numbness that oft dulls me. I cannot think for chaos in my brain. I cannot see while my aspirations blind me, nor can I move because I am lame. So here I ask of no one but myself, what is life's most torrid feud? Is it the conflict that's within ourselves, or the battle between all evil and all good? Reytan's broken, cast-down figure threw a shadow on the rock behind him, crisp and spear-like, like a pillar in the darkness of surroundings. His breath stood still, his eyes were glazed. He blew the air with one great puff, then knocked himself out of his daze with a wild howl, most pained and gruff. Outside, the fields of spelt were calmer now, and everywhere blue smoke it drifted low. What once was crass and mean and loud had only strength enough to faintly glow. So Reytan stood, then slowly ambled down to where the king had sat, addressed him ere low and humble, without removing his black cap. "Sire, the worst, it seems, is now behind. The gods have given us some welcome respite. If it shall please your royal mind, I'll ride without to test the sight." Sass threw up a withering arm and mumbled something no one heard. "When I am sure that we are safe from harm, I shall ride back," Reytan declared. Heavy silver skulls they jangled. The black rider on his steed went far, into the land where trees laid mangled, embedded in fresh layers of char. He slowly moved across the land, testing ground for sturdy strength. But most fields were like bowls of fine sand across its breadth and length. And just as he was poised to turn, he spied a lonely figure standing still, looking ghost-like, mean and stern, neath the next abandoned hill. He neared to it and gave a start. Aurelia 'twas, and she looked glum. "What now, O blackened heart? Where to, O devil's son?" She spat these words with venom spit, like a horned viper in attack. "You still owe me, don't forget. We once had made a pact. The gods are mad," she hissed at Reytan. "They are but nature's loving fury," exclaimed he. "I am not Satan. They are not my judge and jury." "You're still a heathen and a skunk, your heart and mind as black as coal. My nettle comfit stew you drunk, soon I will have your murky soul." Then suddenly she snarled and turned to disappear deep into the fog, while Reytan saw the king returning through the fields with his whole flock. Above the land a screech was heard. The eagle of demise was near. It screamed at every raven bird, and people stopped in frozen fear. It wasn't long before entire clouds of sable birds had gathered high, then hurled themselves onto the crowds, each with its own war cry. The king was first to castle walls and closed the gates fast behind. Reytan clung on to his horse and swung his sword 100 times. He fought the hungry raven mass, and with every ounce of sinewed bone, mad with fury that King Sass left him out here all alone. Finally, heavily blooded and half dying, he slipped onto a secret path which led into an old abandoned mine. There he waited for the aftermath. He saw children, men, and wives being ravaged by the swarm. He saw many lose their lives while King Sass sat in the warm. High above, the eagle hollered, seething with a wrath untold. Deep within his broken soul, Reytan now felt hollow, bitter, blue, and cold.